Hello bookish friends and welcome to another video. My name is Kathleen and here we talk about all things bookish. And for this video, I'm actually planning to start a series here called Genre Jump, where basically in my attempt and my kind of focus on learning and reading more from different genres and exploring and getting out of my comfort genre, since I primarily reach for books from either fantasy or lit fic or contemporary fiction or historical fiction, I'm really working to expand and be a complete and happy, diverse reader and explore genres that I don't always gravitate towards or pick up books from, just to see what I like from these different genres so that I can include them in my rotation and again become more of a diverse reader. So for this focus for this video, I decided to explore the horror genre, which is something that I historically don't really reach that much for. I have read some Stephen King when I was younger and I have enjoyed some of his works, but for the most part, I've never really explored the horror genre and read from any other horror authors besides Stephen King and perhaps maybe Dean Koontz, and that's the extent of my knowledge. But we are living in a different kind of, a different world when it comes to horror right now. And I want to explore and learn more about this genre and see what I like and what works for me, what doesn't work for me. So the three books that I'm wanting to focus on reading for this vlog is first Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson. I have seen a few people that I follow on BookTube talk about this book and just how much of a weird and disturbing and interesting time that it is. And I thought that this would be interesting to dip my toe into. So the synopsis for this says, driving home late one night, Etain Larkin finds a corpse on a pitch black road deep in the Irish countryside. She takes the corpse to a remote farmhouse. So begins a night of unspeakable horror that will take her to the very brink of sanity. She will never speak of it again. 2 decades later, Betty Fitzpatrick, newly arrived at college in Dublin, has already fallen in love with the Drama Society and the beautiful but troubled Aisling Mallon. As their relationship blossoms, Aisling goes to great lengths to keep Betty away from her family, especially her alcoholic mother, Etain. But soon, Betty learns about her lover's terrifying family history and Aisling's secret obsession. Aisling has become convinced that the horrors inflicted on her family are connected to a seemingly innocent children's TV show. Everyone in Ireland watched this show on their youth, but Aisling soon discovers that no one remembers it quite the same way, and only she seems to remember its star, a small black goat puppet who lives in a box and only comes out if you don't behave. They say he's never come out. Almost never. I don't know, this sounds like it's going to be weird, but that's okay. I can do weird. So can't wait to start with this one. I think this is probably the first book that I'm going to start reading. The next book that I'm going to be diving into is Diavola by Jenifer Thorne. I saw a lot of other people that I follow on BookTube mention and talk about this book, so I'm interested in giving it a try. The synopsis says, it isn't easy when she's the only one in the family who doesn't quite seem to fit in. Her twin brother, Benny, goes with the flow so much she's practically dissolved, and her older sister, Nicole, is so used to everyone, including her blandly docile husband and 2 kids, falling in line that Anna often ends up in trouble for simply asking a question. Mom seizes every opportunity to question her life choices, and Dad, when not reminding everyone who paid for this vacation, just wants some peace and quiet. The gorgeous remote villa in tiny Montepresso seems like a perfect place to endure so much family togetherness until things start going off the rails. The strange noises at night, the unsettling warnings from the local villagers, and the dark, violent past of the villa itself. So that sounds like it's going to be an interesting, spooky time. Can't wait to give that a try. And lastly, this is one that I'm really excited about reading, is The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a book that I picked up at the San Antonio Book Festival in April as I sat and I got to watch him talk about his craft, talk about his book, talk about a lot of his inspirations for many of his other books. And he seems like a fascinating person. So cool, and has a lot of interesting thoughts and a lot of interesting things to say, and I am so excited about being able to dive into his work and to see his brain unfold. And the synopsis for this says, This chilling historical novel is set in the nascent days of the state of Montana, following a Blackfeet Indian named Good Stab as he haunts the fields of the Blackfeet Nation looking for justice. It begins when a diary written in 1912 by a Lutheran pastor is discovered within a wall in 2012. What is unveiled is a slow massacre, a nearly forgotten chain of events that goes back to 217 Blackfeet dead in the snow, told in the transcribed interviews with Good Stab, who shares a narrative of his peculiar and unnaturally long life over a series of confessional visits. This is an American Indian revenge story, captured in the vivid voices of the time by one of the new masters of literary horror. This sounds like it's going to be so great. I'm excited. I am so sure it's going to have a lot of social commentary. And out of all three of these books, I have a feeling that I am going to probably rate this 5 stars, and that this is probably going to be an author that I'm going to be watching and wanting to read more of their work. But we'll see how all of this plays out. I'm going to start reading Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson, and I will let you know my initial thoughts when I get about 20 to 30% in, and I will catch you up. So I will see you in the next clip. All right, friends, it is time for a little update. I'm about 25% into Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson, and so far this book is definitely delivering on these weird, strange vibes. As the story is unfolding, we see Etain and what she's going through in the past timeline regarding that kind of traumatic night and the traumatic events that she went through on that night. We see that slowly unfolding, and we're learning more about what happened in her past. And we're also seeing in the present timeline what's happening with Betty at college and Etain's daughter, Aisling, which we haven't really delved into her being her daughter and how that pertains to Etain's story, or how these two timelines even converge. But it's still quite a fascinating and interesting story. Definitely, like I said, giving these weird, strange vibes as I find myself trying to piece together and make sense of the events that were unfolding with Etain that night that she was traveling through the Irish countryside. Of course, I have my thoughts, I have my predictions as to what is actually going on. But I don't want to say anything, not because I fear being wrong, but I just don't want it to actually be something that is, I don't want to maybe reveal a potential or possible spoiler. But yeah, I have my theories for what is going on and the story that Neil Sharpson is weaving in this. I'm enjoying the structure of this story. I like how we go back and forth between the past timeline with what happened that night with Etain, as well as the current timeline and what's going on with Betty, and seeing Betty and Aisling and their relationship develop. Fascinating. It is keeping me riveted and making me and compelling me to dig deeper into the story, to turn these pages, to become really immersed and wanting to know more about these characters, trying to unravel this mystery of what is going on. Definitely a fascinating read, definitely weird, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to diving more into the story. I will hop back on and give you an update when I get to 50%, but I'm really having a good time with this. It's very trippy, it's messing with my head, and I'm enjoying all of it. So far so good. Okay, friends, as you saw, I was reading this during my downtime at work, and I got to, or I'm at 67%, I believe. And these are my thoughts. I am very much surprised at how much I am enjoying this. I did anticipate that this was going to be a very interesting story. I was a little bit nervous if this would hit the right chord with me because it's pitched as being a more weird and a more different type of horror style, but I'm vibing with it. I'm absolutely, totally vibing with it when it comes to it being this horror that has like this folk element to it. I'm really jiving with that. I think that the weird kind of sinister elements is what I'm really enjoying the most out of this. And when it comes to the horror genre in general, I feel like horror in and of itself is something that is usually weird or unsettling and sinister. Those are the elements or the parts of the horror genre that make it what it is. It makes it enjoyable, especially for, I feel like, when it comes to horror. A horror fan such as myself that necessarily doesn't go for like the gratuitous gore and violence and finding that to be what draws me to horror, but more of the psychological elements, the folk elements of horror too. I'm finding that to be more of my jam. And I don't know if this would be considered a folk horror, but again, I'm enjoying the Irish folklore that is within this story and that is interwoven into the events and the circumstances and things that are happening on these pages. As far as this story and the novel itself and where we are at, from my initial thoughts, we have definitely had Sharpson expand his scope in this world as there are a lot of different moving pieces in this story. We have a sapphic romance that is being featured in this story between Betty and Aisling, which is fascinating to kind of see that unfold. We have the elements where we are seeing how the events that happened the night that Etain Larkin disappeared, how that is impacted the Mallon family and how that possibly is impacting present day. That is fascinating in and of itself. And I think what I love the most about this, the horror elements of this, is that it's not necessarily something that is shocking or something that is necessarily going to give you a jump scare or that's going to terrify you. It is unsettling and it is weird and it is strange. And there are some unpleasant things that they're exploring and there are some graphic elements of this, but I don't know, it's written and explored and done in such a way that I find it very digestible for me and easy for me to read and get into. And when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking in comparison to my experience when I read Stephen King, which can sometimes be, his writing historically for me has been very unsettling and very terrifying and not an author that I would read at night before bed. But with Sharpson, I find that he's appealing more to this curiosity that I have in wanting to unravel how all these events are connecting and to figure out what truly is going on, as his way of telling the story is to give you the bare bones of what is going on and kind of the overview of the scenario, but he leaves out very pertinent key details to keep you coming back and make this a very propulsive read for me. And I'm really enjoying that. That is what really has me hooked, is that I kind of have this basic understanding, but there's something that I'm missing and that I'm not seeing that is going to really, when that finally clicks and gets into place, it's going to make everything make sense. And I'm so excited for that other shoe to drop and for all of this to kind of like flesh out and make sense and for everything to, you know, to connect these dots. and I'm enjoying it. I'm having a fabulous time. I feel like this is gonna be 5 fabulous stars because I'm just, I don't know. I'm just so enmeshed and immersed in this world, and I am enjoying his prose as well. The way that he's able to create such a rich atmospheric element in this, full of like suspense and just foreboding, and it comes across as very sinister and very mysterious and intriguing. I'm eating it up with a spoon, and the characters are all so very complex and dynamic, and they're all hiding something. There are secrets that they are retaining, and it's amazing. I'm having a blast with this novel, more than I thought that I would. And yeah, I am really enjoying this. I have theories about what's going on and what's happening, but even the little theories that I can create, I can't fully flesh them out because we're just giving little bits here and there. And I don't know, this is working for me. Whatever magic this man did when he wrote this novel, it is definitely working for me. I'm having a fabulous time. And I will check back when I get to about 80% and let you know how I'm feeling then and how things are going. And then we are going to finish this book up and hop on to the next one. All right, friends. So I finished Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson. And this novel took me by surprise. While I'm not gonna say that I was thinking that I was gonna dislike it or hate it. I thought that I was probably maybe not gonna have as good of a time as I did. And indeed what ended up happening is I had a phenomenal time, and this really set a high bar actually when it comes to the rest of the horror books that I'm going to dive into and read. I think the things that I enjoyed or appreciated about this when it comes to just it being part of the horror genre is the way that it introduced me to it included, I would say, different types of horror all melded into one. So you get some aspects of psychological horror, which I enjoy greatly. You get some aspects of supernatural horror included in this. You have some aspects that are borrowed from folk horror as well as cosmic horror. And I liked how we kind of explored all of those different types of horror because me being, I don't want to say new, but me returning to this genre after so many years and exploring the different subgenres and the different authors that are creating content for this genre. It was cool to see these different kind of aspects and these different subgenres and elements so that I could get a better feel of what I actually liked and what worked for me. And all in all, this really worked for me. The complex storytelling was great. I enjoyed how he built up the bare bones of the story, and he told you just enough information to whet your appetite and to stoke your curiosity, while also leaving you completely in the dark and wanting you to kind of turn the page and really immerse yourself in the story to find out more about what was going on so you could see all the pieces come together and create the full picture. I enjoyed that. It kept the wheels in my head turning, kept me trying to figure out what was going on and unravel what was happening, and I enjoyed that feeling. It again made it an immersive reading experience and a propulsive reading experience. I also enjoyed the characterization in this story. We have a lot of flawed, traumatized characters that are not always making the best decisions, are trying to navigate these circumstances, trying to navigate this history that specifically I'm thinking of Aisling as she's trying to navigate her family's just traumatizing history and make sense of it so that she can, you know, combat that in the present and kind of confront those past issues so that she can move on with her life and improve the quality of her life. And we see her struggle with so many things as a consequence of these traumatizing events that have just plagued her family. And I found that to be endearing. I empathized greatly with her character. I empathized honestly with all characters in the story, even though they were flawed and they did some questionable things and they acted a little not great. I still empathize with them in their situation, considering what was going on underneath all that was happening. I really sympathize with them. Another aspect that I really enjoyed of the story that made it work so well for me was the atmosphere. I felt that Sharpson did such a wonderful job creating this continual atmosphere of suspense, dread. It didn't necessarily feel like a very scary thing where you got jump scares or where I felt like I was terrified while reading it, but it was still very unsettling. And there was a lot of foreboding that I felt reading this, as I just knew something wasn't right and that things weren't adding up. And, you know, I like that. That to me makes a really good horror, is exploring those uncomfortable, unsettling, kind of creepy elements that you get as a story unfolds and you're trying to figure out, and you're watching these characters trying to figure out what is going on and why they're dealing with or undergoing these crazy, wild scenarios. I like that it played a little bit with your questioning of reality, so to speak, or had the unreliable narrator where you were questioning whether things were really happening. You were questioning whether this person was maybe having a mental break or not, and you couldn't decipher between what was real and what wasn't real. I really enjoyed that. I thought that that was cool. The unreliable narrator trope is indeed one of my favorites when it comes to a mystery thriller and also with horror. There's just something about having the author manipulate and play with you that way and throw a misdirection and kind of like push and pull your attention to where they want it to, and manipulating your emotions and what you feel and making it a very evocative experience. I love that. So this book for me was outstanding and I had a fabulous time reading it. I gave it 4 stars because it was great. The only reason this wasn't like a ballpark read for me and that I didn't give it 5 stars is there were a couple of things in this storyline that weren't necessarily answered or wrapped up at the conclusion. While I thought that the conclusion was excellent and Sharpson did such an amazing job of tying everything together and giving you a satisfactory of a conclusion that can be had within horror and still kind of like giving you that unsettling kind of feeling at the end. But there were just a couple of things in the story that I felt weren't answered for me satisfactorily that I would have wanted to learn and understand about a little bit more. But aside from that, this was a great book. This is a good time. Definitely, I'm going to be adding Neil Sharpson to my list of authors to keep an eye on and to watch out for, because I would love to explore more of his work in the future. But yeah, so we are done with Knock Knock Open Wide. Had a great time. Great way to kick off this little experiment, this little video. Next, I'm going to be reading The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, which this is one of my most anticipated books for this video, for this project, this experiment. I have heard nothing but fabulous things about Stephen Graham Jones, and the reason that I have just had this interest in him is because I have seen many people talk about how he speaks to a lot of social issues and that he is very socially conscious when it comes to racial identity and colonialism. And these are things and topics that I really enjoy reading about and delving into, as a lot of these authors typically have some very apt commentary and they have a lot of parallels that you can draw on for our current society today, and it's very relevant. And for me, it creates a very profound and cerebral reading experience, because a lot of things in this world, when it pertains to racism, when it pertains to colonialism, when it pertains to inequality, it is horrific when you think about it, when you think about his world history as a whole. It can be very horrifying when you think about the way that we treat other people due to class, due to race, due to gender. And exploring these topics within a horror framework, for me, I think that sounds like a good time. So I'm excited to delve into his work and read this novel and see what it's all about, and support an Indigenous author in the horror genre. I'm very excited to get into this, and so I'm going to get ready and go ahead and cozy up with my iced coffee and dive into this, and I will let you know my initial thoughts when I get to about 20 to 25%. All right, friends, I am here to give my initial thoughts on The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. I am approximately 20% into this novel, and so far I'm having a fascinating time. It is, the storytelling, the prose is amazing. It feels like we're building up to something epic happening, and I am literally on the edge of my seat, just waiting for all this to unfold. So in this story, we are following the discovery of a journal from a Lutheran pastor back in 1912 Montana. And as this person has discovered this journal, they're a descendant of this Lutheran pastor. She is doing her job of kind of translating and like reading the journal and uncovering its truths and learning more about her history. And as this is happening, we are learning about the events that were happening in Montana in 1912 at that time, and how there was this situation happening where these bodies were being discovered skinned alive with like some markings on their face, and how everyone was suspecting that to be due to indigenous people or indigenous Indians in the area. And we are following this, as well as this this Blackfeet Indian named Goodstab that comes to the Lutheran pastor saying that he wants to undergo this confession, and he's beginning to tell him his story, share his history, his life's story with him in this effort to confess to him this great crime. And he's doing this bit by bit, piece by piece. So he's coming to the church every Sunday, and after the service he is confessing all to the pastor. Things that I'm noticing is that with this Lutheran pastor, he comes off as very hypocritical and very full of himself, and it grates my nerves a little bit because he has these airs of grandiosity, and it's irritating to read from. And even when he has these exchanges with Goodstab, it's like he's trying to assert his superiority, and the way that he even talks about Goodstab in his journals, it's very bigoted, and it gets on my nerves. But I know it serves a greater purpose. But yeah, that's interesting. And hearing Goodstab kind of tell his story as it unfolds, it's quite, I don't want to say magical, it's very immersive the way that he's telling the story. And I find that those bits, it's just really creating this visceral reaction within me. I just find it so fascinating. Learning more about Goodstab as his story unfolds, and learning about his history, and also seeing how that's juxtaposed with the events that are happening at the time within Montana. And I'm anxious to see how all of these things kind of line up and intertwine and all bleed into this one singular narrative. I cannot wait for all that to happen. And yeah, so far I've been having a really good time, and it's been living up to the hype and anticipation for me. The prose and the writing, like I said, is exquisite. It's lovely. I love his writing style so far. Yeah, I can't wait to get back into it. I will hop back on and give you another update and share my thoughts when we get to the 50% mark. friends, so I am hopping on for the final update for The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. I finished this book, I do believe it was last Thursday, so I finished this book a few days ago, and wow is all I can say. I am highly impressed, and definitely Stephen Graham Jones has made it to my list of authors to watch with a strong potential to become one of my favorite authors, because this was, in my opinion, nothing short of a masterpiece with the different themes that are. But let's break down the elements that made this a brilliant horror book, in my opinion. The element that I feel that really made this a brilliant and well done horror book, as this is something that's more of a historical horror, it is more literary leaning, and it has a lot of what we would call social horror. And I believe that those things is what made this something that I really enjoy, and that going forward, as I continue to explore the horror genre, I'm definitely going to pick up more books that are social horror, that, you know, are literary leaning, those types of elements I think that really work well for me, with me being a huge fan of literary fiction and contemporary. So that made this just excellent. It made this a superb reading experience. The complex storytelling, it was just top notch. And that really worked in its favor for me as a horror. Another thing about this that I think that as a horror that I realized and noticed that I really liked and I appreciated was the supernatural elements, the way that it was such a fresh take on vampirism and vampire myth and lore, and that it was made applicable to the indigenous community. And he kind of flipped that on its head, and while also making it applicable to the indigenous community, he made it this horrific part of the story by exploring the elements of vampirism that are using it as a metaphor for colonialism and imperialism. And that to me was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. And also the themes that were explored within this novel as pertaining to the violent history of colonialism and imperialism and the genocide of the particular indigenous community in this novel, and exploring these deeper, more complex themes and topics, and how that in and of itself is a horror story. I ate that up. I really enjoyed that aspect and element of this, and exploring those kind of real life social issues and themes in such a horrific way worked for me. Another thing that I really liked and enjoyed about this is me being a person who, when I read horror, I don't really like a lot of gore. I don't really like a lot of body horror. But in this book, we get some body horror, we get some gore, we get some very gruesome, graphic depictions of violent acts and of body horror. However, they were written and they were explained, while graphic and very detailed, it was done in such a way that it didn't really bother me. It didn't, I wasn't sensitive to it or sensitized to that. I don't know, I felt that it was appropriate, and it worked, and it went in with the theme, and it went in with the story, and it wasn't just gratuitous violence for the sake of it. It had a meaning, and it had a point and a purpose within this greater story. I enjoyed that. I think that all the things that I'm mentioning, that I'm talking about now, is what makes this, like, for me, the type of horror book that I would continually seek out and pick up in the future. Also is what made this work as a novel in and of itself. The complexity of the themes, the writing style. It was, his writing style was brilliant. The way that he could handle these unique, different, distinct characters and create voices and depth and complexity for each of these different characters, and you being able to differentiate between them and how their voices and what they were going through and how it pertained to the overall theme and the overall purpose and intent of this novel. The way that he did that, the way that he crafted it, it was absolutely brilliant, absolutely stunning. I loved that this wasn't a book that was necessarily, I would say, easy. When it comes to the readability for this book, I will say that it's easy to read and I feel like it's easy to get into, but he doesn't dumb things down and make it simple for you or spoon feed you anything. He kind of, when it comes to the Blackfeet Bikini culture, he just tells it like it is, and he doesn't necessarily go into long, detailed descriptions or explanations about that. And I respect that. You can do the work and learn about it more yourself, but he just kind of leaves it as it is, and you can use context clues to figure things out, actually. But I appreciated that. It wasn't, I don't feel like it was necessary to kind of dumb these things down. Also, when it comes to the vocabulary in this book, I loved it. He was very verbose in a lot of his word choices, and I love that. I love that he didn't write or create a book that was just easily palatable, but that you do have a little bit of work to do in your brain in order to properly kind of have the best experience with this book, to understand this book, and to, you know, get all that he is exploring and putting down. And while I'm not going to say that it was something that was difficult, I feel like a lot of the themes and a lot of the points and commentary he was making, it was very easy to comprehend and to pick up on. And the metaphors were just, to me, it was easy to kind of understand what he was talking about, what he was getting at. He still doesn't make it so easy to the point as it's insulting the reader's intelligence, like you wouldn't be able to pick this up. So I appreciated that as well. This was an enjoyable experience. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I am eager to read another book by Stephen Graham Jones because this was just fabulous for me. So as that stands, I need to start the last book for this video, which is Diavola, or Diavola. I'm gonna have to check and make sure that I'm pronouncing that right, by Jenifer Thorne. I'm excited and anxious to see what this book is about and see what my experience is with reading it. I will start reading this, and when I get about 20% in, I will share my initial thoughts then. Hi friends, so I'm popping in with an update for Diavola, which I am about 21% into this story so far, and I wanted to share my initial thoughts. I wrote them down just so that I can kind of like remember what I'm thinking as I'm going. So pretty much at the beginning of this, from what I'm gathering, this is shaping up to be more of a gothic horror novel. And we're seeing just in this 20%, even from the beginning of this story, we were kind of seeing, as Anna was coming into the villa, how it was described as this kind of like older property that has some rich history, but that it seemed that it was kind of like more on the dilapidated side, that it wasn't exactly like kept up very well, and how they did add in some modern pieces or modern elements to this villa, but it felt out of place, like it didn't necessarily fit the look and the upkeep of the villa in and of itself. We have also seen some paranormal activity in this, as Anna is kind of noticing some odd things that are happening within the villa and around the villa. And I'm loving that. And it's not necessarily spooking me out just yet, but it's done in such a way that it's not, I don't feel like it's too early for it or it's too strong for it to come out. It's definitely done, I think, in a very smart way in this format where we see Anna and a lot of the people, they're experiencing this paranormal and kind of weird activity, but it's not significant enough for you to be like, there is something actually happening. It's more in the guise of, maybe I'm imagining this, or this can't be exactly what I'm seeing. This is a trick of the light. Maybe I'm seeing things. It's kind of in that vein, and you as a reader can kind of feel and see how this is going to eventually escalate and continue building up throughout this novel, and I am appreciating that. Now, when it just comes to my feelings about the story and that's what's going on with the family as well, I find it to be interesting. I find that I am kind of feeling for Anna and what she's going through with her family, because they're very annoying, and they're very nitpicky, and they're very, passive aggressive in such a frustrating way, and they're constantly kind of like digging into her personal life and being super invasive and constantly trying to make it seem like she's not doing enough or she's not participating with the family enough, and like they're trying to find a problem with her, and that is annoying. But at the same time, I can also see how Anna is also culpable in this like fractured relationship dynamic, and some of the things that she says and the way that she acts and the things that she does. So it's one of those situations where nobody is completely innocent. Everybody's a little bit fucked up, and everybody's, not acting their best and being considerate of each other, which is the perfect, environment for, stuff to happen and shit to go wrong. So yeah, I am enjoying that and seeing and reading about that. The thing is that there's definitely been some interesting kind of foreshadowing scenes that happen that is just enough to whet your appetite and to get your hackles up, to know that there's going to be some stuff that goes down. We've gotten the first warning from the waiter that the family went to this restaurant to eat at, and upon him learning that they were staying at the villa of Takala or whatever, he became a little bit distant. And when Anna went to inquire about specifically the tower room, he was trying to give her this information, and he was like, I shouldn't tell you, but I'm going to tell you this. Like, whoever has the key to the tower room, don't use that key. Don't open the tower room. Don't go in there. And she asks him, like, well, is it haunted? And are there ghosts there? And he was like, multi, which I suspect is going to translate to multitudes. So that was a little like eerie and a little like, oh goodness. But yeah, that's kind of where I left off at. Yeah, I'm enjoying this so far. I do love a good gothic horror, like I said. So I'm having a pretty good time so far. I will continue on, and I will let you know when I get to the 50% mark and share my thoughts then. All right, hey friends, am I a slow reader? Yes, I am. But am I in this to win this? Yes, I am. So I am 63% of the way into Diavola, maybe. I still haven't figured out how to say this. But I'm 66% on my way into this book, and I'm really enjoying it. I am enjoying the madness of this family because, woo, let me tell you, they is annoying. Anna herself, like I said, and I mentioned this before, that there's a lot of this that she contributes when it comes to this family dynamic that she contributes, but they are also team too freaking much all the time. They're annoying. And then when it comes to the paranormal elements of the story, the gothic elements of the story, they're superb. The way that Thorne is able to capture and create this vibe and this atmosphere of decay, of just heavy foreboding and dread, and just make it seem so unsettling. Like the way that she is describing the villa is so perfect to me. It's such a vibe, and it really, it's spooking me out. Like, it's been really spooky to read. I've been reading this at work during my downtime, and it has been giving me the spooks. Also, the way that she also kind of describes the way the family unit is fractured, and how that kind of acts as another element or a layer to the story, which is making me question, is it just a villa that is haunted? Has now this family been infected with whatever is going on as well? And that's contributing to kind of the madness that is ensuing with them, like with the way that they're interacting with one another. Is this like a double, like, is this not only a haunting, but is this also kind of like, what is the word for that? Is this, the word is possession. So is this not just a haunting? Is this also a possession, where they have become possessed by these spirits or these entities or whatever the case may be? Fascinating. I am hooked. And I will say, at the point that I am at now, I would have left my family. If my family was like this and they were passive aggressive and petty like this, and I was trying to like put them on to like, y'all, something ain't right, and they kept like trying to make it like you're the problem, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm gonna take my problematic, you know what, out home. Y'all call me, okay, when you get home. But I getting the F out of Dodge for sure. With family like that, hell no, I would have left. There are too many times I would have left. But she is a good one, and she's a good one. And the way that things, I'm not going to talk too much about that, but the way that things shake up, she's a good one. Because me, I would have left y'all 10 times over. I would have left y'all before I even got to the vacation. I would have just, a matter of fact, I would have never stayed there. I would have had my own little place and be like, I'll meet y'all at the events. Because I need space. Because y'all own one. And I love you, but I'm going to have to love you from afar. But yeah, I'm having a great time with this. I will pop back in when I finish her up and let you know my full thoughts. Oh my gosh, so it's finally time to wrap up this video. Like, this is probably moving consistently for you, but over here in the trenches, it's been a labor of love. But we are done with episode 1, volume 1 of Genre Jump Horror. Yeah. So I finished Diavola. So I finished Diavola, and it was a spectacular time. I gave it 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed and loved this novel. This was the epitome, I think, of gothic horror. It felt so oppressive, so uncomfortable, so heavy, so full of foreboding. The way that she crafted and cultivated the atmosphere was spectacular. But she didn't just stop at the atmosphere. I also enjoyed the way that she had the essence of rot and decay as it impacted the people. And to me, it worked. I know there are a lot of people that this did not work for. Okay, that's fine. That is fair. We all have different experiences, but this ticks all my boxes, and I really, really enjoyed it. I also really enjoyed Anna. I liked her sarcasm. I liked her wit. I liked her banter. I just really, really liked her and felt for her. She wasn't perfect, of course. She was a very flawed character. But considering the situation and the dynamics with her family and how cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs they were, homegirl was ahead of the game. She was for sure ahead of the game. And I really liked the way that things ended and how things kind of like came together and how they all fleshed out. It all made absolute and complete and total sense, and I enjoyed that. Now, when I'm looking back on the books that we read for this vlog and me kind of dipping my toe back into horror for the first time after not really reading horror for many, many years, I would say this video was wildly successful. And could I possibly be a horror girly again? I don't know. Could I be a horror girly? I don't know, because we had a lot of bangers in this video, starting with Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson. That one set the tone and set the pace for this vlog. I really do feel I had such a great time with that. It introduced me. It was the perfect introduction into the horror genre, as not only did it have like the vibes, the unsettling aspects, the, you know, foreboding, and the way that he structured this story in such a way that he gave you the framework of what was going on, but he left out key pieces to keep you intrigued, to keep you turning the pages, to keep you trying to like puzzle out and put together what exactly was going on. And that really worked for my little brain that loves to go deep and loves to just try to unravel and figure things out. It worked. It scratched an itch. And not only that, but he also had different kind of elements of horror wrapped up in this novel. So there was some cosmic horror aspects that were part of this. There was folk horror. There was, of course, the kind of supernatural aspects of this novel as well. And he was able to blend these all together so well and really get me interested and maybe exploring other subgenres of horror that I probably wouldn't have considered to even look into. But he did such a fine job. It was such a great introduction to our reintroduction to the horror genre. I had a fabulous time with that. I do believe I gave that 4 stars and phenomenal experience. Loved it. And that we rolled into The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, which was probably my most highly anticipated novel to read in this blog, and it did not disappoint. It was the epitome of social horror, indigenous horror. I love the metaphors. I love the themes. I love the structure and the way that Stephen Graham Jones unfolded and told this story. I was hooked. It was riveting, and I was hooked, and it was propulsive, and it invaded my psyche. I had dreams about Gustav, and the way that I just connected and felt for Gustav and just felt his anguish and all of his feelings, and the way that he was able to evoke such a visceral reaction from me through this character, it was a mind-blowing experience. And to say that Stephen Graham Jones has now officially been added to my authors to watch list, and I am eagerly anticipating going through his backlist and reading more of his novels and seeing more of his works in the horror genre, would be an understatement. Like, I cannot wait for my next Stephen Graham Jones read. And The Buffalo Hunter was 4.5 stars. I had a fabulous time. And then we are wrapping this all up with Diavola by Jenifer Marie Thorne. And this was also an amazing experience. I loved it. It was this perfect gothic horror with the rich atmosphere, just like I was saying, that doesn't just apply to the actual scenery and background, but it invaded and permeated into the people and the relationships. And it made it such a rich story for me. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. Gave that one a 4.5 stars as well. So this video was a wild success. And I am also actively working on another genre jump video where I explore horror because I just can't get enough. This video really just scratched an itch and just opened up this desire to truly and really explore the horror genre. And I just had a fabulous time. It was so good. And I'm so excited that, this is another genre that I can read from and that I can explore and that I can dig into and just, I don't know. I love reading. I love reading, y'all. It's so flippin' fun. And yeah, so this video was a wild success. When it comes to the subgenres that I feel like I'm the most interested in, I do think that the subgenres that really are standing out to me and that are really calling me would be gothic horror. It feels like gothic horror is really that girl for me, and that I'm really enjoying that. Next up would be more, I guess, social or literary horror, and from The Buffalo Hunter is what I'm thinking of, things that have themes regarding colonialism and that are culturally apt and have something to say. I just love that. I really love that. I'm here for it. I do want to explore more of folk horror and cosmic horror, but right now I feel like the social horror and gothic horror literally has their girl by a throat. And I really am eager and excited to read more books by authors that kind of trickle into that genre and that arena and collect those type of books, because I really feel like that is up my alley, and that's probably going to be my favorite subgenres of horror. But that is all for the first installment of Genre Jump. I will see you in the next one. It is going to be us exploring horror again. And I do think the one after that is going to be us exploring romantasy. So this is such a fun series. I'm so excited about it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this and that you can share your picks for your favorite horror that you think that I would love and that are genres or subgenres that you think that I should explore and look into and dive into. I will say, I don't know if I'm a slasher girl, so be be also for real. If it's a slasher, I might not get to it for a long while. But if it's something that's a gothic horror or more of a social literary horror, or even cosmic or folk horror, definitely drop your recs in the comments below. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.